Welcome back for the second part of our series on the people in the book of Ruth. The second person mentioned in the book of Ruth is her mother-in-law, Naomi. Yes, Naomi is mentioned in verse 1, named in verse 2, and remains in the story to the very end of the book of Ruth. She is the only character found everywhere in the book of Ruth from beginning to end. This tells us something about her importance in the narrative. She is more or less the engine that keeps the family going and brings the story to a successful conclusion. This could easily have been called the Book of Naomi rather than the Book of Ruth. Ruth is perhaps the most inspirational character in the book, but Naomi is the most proactive. The name Naomi, as we mentioned last time, means pleasing or pleasant, a very common root in the Semitic languages. In the Arabic language, for example, the common word for yes is na'am, which I suppose means something like, it is pleasing, or as we would say in Italian, si piace. The root occurs in a couple of other Hebrew names. In 1 Chronicles 11, there is a man named El Na'am, God is pleasing. And in Judges chapters 4 and 5, another man named Abi Noam, my father is pleasing. Naomi lives up to her name and manages to please not only her husband, but everyone else that appears in the book of Ruth. No doubt she was pleasing to her sons, so pleasing to her daughters-in-law that they didn't want to go back to their own mother, pleasing to the women of Jerusalem on her return, pleasing to her in-laws, and finally, no doubt, very, very pleasing to her grandson at the end of the book. But she would have had to bring more to the marriage with Elimelech than just a pleasant disposition. A modest landowner had to consider the future of his children. He couldn't marry a poor girl for love because they would end up having poor children. He needed to consider a wife bringing something to the marriage of a financial nature, the dowry. Now, dowries have gotten a bad name because it looks like the father of the bride is paying a man to take the woman off his hands, but actually the father of the bride wants to make sure that his bride is marrying someone important, and the bigger dowry you can offer, the more important of a husband you can attract for your daughter, and the better off the children will eventually be. Both sides in the marriage contract brought financial means as best they could. The woman brought the dowry, the husband brought the patrimony. I guess what I'm saying is that Naomi brought both a pleasing personality and also a pleasing dowry with her into the marriage with Elimelech. Naomi herself makes a pun on her own name in the most important statement that she makes in the whole course of the book. At the end of chapter 1, when she has returned to Bethlehem, she said to the women of Bethlehem, "Do not call me Naomi," which means pleasant. "Call me Mara," which means bitter. This is a very famous quotation and occurs sometimes in the services of Good Friday to make a connection between the Blessed Virgin Mary and Naomi. Mary and Naomi both had many sadnesses. They had many bitter experiences in life. Both of them lost a husband. Naomi lost Elimelech. Mary lost Joseph. I don't know why that is not listed among the seven sorrows of Our Blessed Lady. It seems to me like it should be up there, or at least number 2. Both of them lost offspring. Naomi lost 2 sons. Mary lost 1. Both of them went into exile. Naomi went east into Moab, and Mary went west into Egypt. One to escape a drought, the other one to escape persecution from a wicked king. And they are both facing the losses of their lives with faith. So Naomi is certainly a suffering lady who prefigures the suffering Lady Mary. But too often this verse is quoted without the tail end of it. Yes, she said to the women, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara," which means bitter. But she continues, "For Shaddai has embittered me greatly." Shaddai is a relatively rare name for God in the Hebrew Bible. It occurs 48 times, only twice in the Psalms, in 2 different Psalms, and only twice in the book of Ruth, but both coming from the mouth of Naomi. Now, so often on the internet, I have found statements, in the book of Ruth calls God Shaddai. Let's be a little more specific. Naomi calls God Shaddai. When her daughter-in-law says, "Your God will be my God," what did Naomi call her God? And we discover in verses 20 and 21 of chapter 1 of Ruth that Naomi called God Shaddai. We're not sure exactly what that meant, but it was well enough attested that we know it was pretty common at different points of Hebrew history. In addition to calling God Shaddai in verse 20, Naomi goes on and continues, "I was filled when I left Bethlehem, but Adonai," the regular name for God, "has brought me back empty. Why do you women call me Naomi? For Adonai," the normal name of God, "has sentenced me, and Shaddai," Naomi's special name for God, "has brought me evil." With these 2 sentences considered as a unit, Naomi is making a theological reflection upon her sufferings. She's not just suffering in silence. She is saying what Job said, "I came into the world naked, I leave the world naked." But she is also saying, when I had good things, they came from the Lord. When I had bad things, they came from the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In other words, Naomi is pleasing God here. Having pleased everybody else in the book, it would only make sense for Naomi to make a special effort to please her God, for whom she had this special name, Shaddai. What comes across loud and clear then in the book of Ruth is that Naomi is a woman of great character and strength. She is the one who finds daughters-in-law because her husband has left her, so she has to negotiate the marriage of her sons. She is the one who brings Ruth into the story of Ruth's own book. She is the one who brings Ruth back to Bethlehem, sets up dating with a near relative, and the matrimony of Ruth to raise a son for her sons, a grandson for her husband. She is the one who makes the book of Ruth happen, and because of the book of Ruth and the story it contains, the line of David exists. So Naomi creates the royal family of Jerusalem. The royal mothers held a very important position in Judean society. There might have been multiple queen consorts at any given time, but there was always just one queen mother. Her official title was Gebirah, the strong woman. The house of David was a functional family, and Naomi was the one who got the ball rolling. We'll see you next time to talk about the sons of Naomi. See you then.